Welcome to Whiskey Advent 2020, Day 6. We are Blake and Chantel Barber.
Hello.
Lovers of whiskey. And today we are jumping into Scotch. Specifically Lismore 18.
Yes.
But let's talk a little about Scotch. We've been on a whiskey and bourbon kick for a while. Scotch clearly is from Scotland. Much like only bourbon can be made in the U.S., only Scotch can be made in Scotland.
One interesting thing, they spell whiskey differently than us Americans do. They have no E in the word, and they originated the word, so they get to do what they want. Sure. Whiskey literally translates to water of life, and this is a single malt Scotch, but it's also a Speyside single malt Scotch. The interesting thing about Scotland is it's got about 6 regions.
Five
official regions of Scotch and different kind of flavor profiles where those regions, sit. Speyside is the smallest region. However, it has the most distilleries per square mile or per capita or per... It's
per something.
It is the most distilleries in the world. It's concentrated in this one small area of Scotland.
So there's the Highlands and the Lowlands. So those are each regions. And Speyside is a smaller region within the Highlands.
Yes.
And then we also have Islay, which is one specific island. They get their own region, but we'll get to one of those later for good reason. They're our faves. We also have another smaller region called Campbelltown, and there's only four current couple distilleries there. We'll have one of those.
Very small amounts of those in general. And then there's the islands.
Yeah, that's the remaining sort of unofficial region is the islands. So any of the other islands that produce Scotch kind of fall into that category, even though they might technically belong to the Highlands.
Right.
So we chose this Lismore 18. That's a good age there.
Very good age. You'll notice with Scotches you get higher ages because the temperatures that they age, or the temperatures in Scotland are much lower than they are here in the States. So you think about Kentucky, it's very hot, and things age faster in Kentucky. So because of the heat. They don't have as much heat, so that things have to age a little longer. So it's pretty standard for a 10-year Scotch.
Lots of sirens.
Yes.
We live by the highway.
Yes.
It's okay. Keep talking.
Okay.
Keep talking.
So Scotches are usually aged a bit longer than American whiskeys are. So that's why we chose this Lismore 18. Very affordable, but incredibly interesting to me. I love this whiskey. I don't even really enjoy Speysides all that much. When you think of Speysides, you think of your Glenlivets, your Glenfiddichs, any of the Glens in that area.
There's Glens all over Scotland.
Yes, but I really I cut my teeth on Glenlivet and Glenfiddich, but I just don't care for Speysides.
Literally, his grandma rubbed it on his...
I really don't care for Speysides all that much, except for this one. I love this, and it's got a very Campbelltown note to it to me. It's funky. It is got just depth of flavor, and I really, really enjoy it. It's affordable. It's easily
How much
findable.
Is this one for an 18
This is
year?
$50.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You can get the Lismore 21, which we also have. It's absolutely incredible, and it's less than 100. And with the tariffs on Scotch and Irish whiskey, I think these are good value buys and great things to have on your shelf.
Impress your in-laws.
Yes, very much so. Lismore 21 or Lismore 18. Sorry, 18. What are you getting on the nose?
I'm getting a light fruitiness. Definitely fig. Yes, definitely.
A lot of fig, maybe some honey with that, like honey's and fig. A little apricot.
Yeah, sort of that sweet
tangy,
fruit.
Dried fruit.
For sure.
There is a funk
Honey.
there too.
Apparently, I think whiskey just has a funk. That's
does.
just, I mean.
This is very reminiscent to the Campbelltown to me, in that it's got this just weird flavor that I can't even really put my finger on, and I love it.
Honey. I can taste the barley, the malted barley, because it's got that green, that scotchy, grainy taste. Sweetness from honey.
Mm-hmm.
You said apricot. I can get the apricot, fig.
Do you want to talk about
Definitely
what makes a single malt a
fruits.
single malt?
I'll let you talk about that.
So single malt scotches have to come from one distillery and in the same rickhouse, same distilled location. And it has to be 100% malted barley. So malted barley just means barley that they start to germinate, and that's what's called malting. And then they cut that germination off, like they start to sprout the seed, the barley. And then they cut it off, and they grind it up, make a mash out of it. And
It ferments.
And becomes
And it turns
whiskey.
into the water of life.
Yes, water of life. So the single malt has to come from one distillery again, and has to be from the same location as well to make it a single malt. And there's other classifications, and there's newer classifications as different distilleries start experimenting and using different types of grain, different types of flavors come out of it, and all are good. Traditionally, single malts compared to blends are considered the higher quality. I don't find that to be the case all the time. I love this one. I think it's a high quality, but I could go with a blended or a single malt, and it doesn't bother me either way.
And Scotch has been around for a long time, and I think and there's very, very strict rules about what they can and can't do. And they're very, very steeped in tradition and things. So, and then we'll get to Compass Box later, but they blend different things and kind of change it up and get creative, and we like that because tradition is clearly Scotch
Very
is good
good.
for various reasons.
I love this. This
But-
is so good.
We're not afraid to venture, and a lot of the newer peoples are venturing, and it's exciting.
Yeah. When you think of your blends, you think of like your Johnny Walkers, you think of your Chivas, other distilleries like that, and blenders. Again, this is a single malt. It is great. It is fantastic. It's something I would definitely have around.
It's quite tasty.
Very tasty. We're at 43% alcohol, so 86 proof. It drinks a little stronger than that to me, so a lot of flavor, a lot of depth. And I think that scotches are definitely more subtle than bourbons. And so when you're drinking a scotch, there's more flavors that come out, even though it's more subtle. Whereas a bourbon might punch in the mouth, and it's just kind of that one note or two notes, and maybe you get your cherry, vanilla, and your classic stuff. With scotch, there can be an endless possibilities of just little notes that you can kind of pick up here and there. That's why I love scotch a lot. And I don't think if there's anything else I love about
What are
this
you getting
one.
on the finish?
It's lingering. It is a little bit spicy, which I love, especially in a scotch, which tends to be a little more subdued in that spice, but it's there. It's like a tingle. It's not harsh. It's very
It's
subtle.
great.
It's very good.
That
Some
fruit, that
bitter.
dried fruit is still kind of lingering. Now, what kind of barrels do they use for scotch?
Good segue.
Good question, huh?
So when we talked about bourbon in the past, bourbon has to be aged in new charred oak barrels. There are no rules for the barrels that scotch can use. And commonly they use ex-wine barrels, ex-bourbon barrels, and just any other types of barrels, ex-cognac barrels that they can get their hands on. Whereas the bourbon has that strict rule just right there at the aging process. This doesn't have that. So they can even switch barrels in the middle of this. Typically they use a lot of ex-wine barrels and a lot of ex-bourbon barrels. Those are typical.
They're abundant.
Yeah, they're yes.
People love their wine and bourbon,
Yeah.
so might as well recycle those barrels.
So that does also add another dimension to scotches, that
You don't have a bourbon.
You don't always have a bourbon. Now, luckily, bourbon is allowed to be finished in different types of barrels, so we are now getting some interesting flavors and different experimentation in the bourbon and in the American whiskey side, which we've kind of always had in Scotch, but
it's an exciting time to be a whiskey drinker.
Yes, very exciting. The only problem I have with Scotch right now is the tariffs, and you'll probably notice the prices of Scotch and Irish, any type of import is going to be a little bit higher, and your Macallans, hopefully that will change. Your Macallans and Obens and things like that, the really prominent Scotches, you see those nice expensive bottles on the shelf, and they've jumped by $1,000 or more and stuff like that. It's crazy. So kind of stinks that Scotches have that price hike, but there's still very affordable options out there. This Lismore, very incredible. Love it.
Cheers.
Cheers.